and welcome to another episode of Sum of Our Parts, the podcast where two friends talk about the movies that make up who they are. I'm Lindsay,
And I'm Jim.
and this week it was my pick. I went into my adolescence and picked a movie that was very impactful at the time, based on a book that was also impactful to me at the time, Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants. So, Jim, had you seen this before?
I have not seen the movie, and in case you're all wondering, yes, that is my cat in the background. I apologize in advance. I had not seen the movie. I knew of the movie and I knew of the actors that were in the movie, but no, I had not seen the movie until you brought it up for our review. So this was my first time seeing it. And I did a little digging into it. So, but I enjoyed the movie. I will say up front that I did enjoy it.
Good, good. I think it's a solid movie. I will sort of paint the picture. So I had read the book that this is based on, Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants by Anne Brashares. It had been, I want to say, given to me by my dad's girlfriend at the time.
Mm,
I can't remember for certain, but I feel pretty sure that that's where it came from because she gave me a couple books. And then the movie came out when I was a freshman in high school. So it was June 2005, is the end of my freshman year. I was freshly 15, and one of my best friends and I were going to see it. And we invited two of our guy friends. I don't know why this seemed like a movie they wanted to watch. I guess we just wanted to hang out, and they said they couldn't come. I don't know if that was true or not, but in retrospect, we were both very glad that they said no, especially my friend because she and one of the boys had like crushes on each other. But it really turned into a tear fest for us, which I think would have been slightly awkward had we had male companions with us, even though, like, for me especially, they were truly just friends. But I do remember also, so when we got to the movies, we sat way up in the back, all the way kind of back row. We had some snacks. Thankfully, we had a bunch of napkins for the previously mentioned Tear Fest. And as it's filling up down in the front, these girls we know go sit there. They're younger than us. They're kind of like the younger sisters of a lot of folks we know. Younger sisters, like neighbors, stuff like that. We
mhm.
know them from like, you know, they're or they were finishing seventh grade, I guess, if we're ninth grade. And so we knew them from like our friends who were their older siblings, from like they lived near other friends, sports, stuff like that. So
Okay.
they're people we knew and they're people who knew us because
Gotcha.
they sit there and look, turn around to spot us immediately. So they knew who we were. And that was at the beginning. We are just like, oh, that's weird that these like seventh graders are staring at us. But, seventh graders are strange. So whatever happens. And then the movie came on and we are crying like buckets.
Now,
Like,
early into the movie?
not early in,
Oh, okay.
but
Okay.
when kind of things start to pick up emotionally, certainly like
Okay.
there are sad moments and we'll talk about them, but
Yeah.
the amount that we were crying was like comical. I'm like handfuls of napkins, and I'm sure I was worse than my friend was because as we'll talk about it, some stuff hit very close to home for me. But like the neckline of my shirt was all soaked because there's
Ooh.
just tears like just running down my face, like truly just absurd. And we were like, I was so glad that the boys didn't come to this. And then, we're trying to clean ourselves up when the lights come up because we know these girls are like
Oh, yeah, yeah.
looking at us. We're like,
Mm-hmm.
we need to get it together. We need to get it together before like these seventh graders are like, these older girls are crazy. So yeah, it is a very memorable movie going experience for me.
I'm
Uh,
sure.
but again, I really loved the story. I read this book. So there's four books of like the original kind of book. I
Oh,
think I think she might have written more when they were like adults, but like of the sort of young adult
mm-hmm.
thing, there were four and there's two movies. So they made a sequel to it. I don't love the second one as much. I mean, sequels rarely are as good, but it's also the second movie combines stuff from a lot of the other books, which I
Okay.
didn't love instead of just like doing one for each book.
Hmm.
They just did this one that was sort of a hodgepodge. So that wasn't my favorite
Now,
thing,
had you read
but
the book before you saw the movie?
yes.
Okay.
Yes. I'm like 99% sure
Okay.
I had
Was
read it.
just
I don't know
curious
that
if
I'd
you.
read, I don't know when the timeline is of all the other books when they came out, but I'm fairly certain that I read this book. So I knew what was going to happen.
Okay.
But I think, and we'll get into this. I do think that like seeing it played out in front of you is different. And especially like, because, there are good performances in this, and, the cast, as
Agreed.
you mentioned, are really good. And these are people that like, I think this is early career for a lot of them, but they went
Hmm.
on to do like they're very famous people
Hmm.
now. So, yeah, I think that even though I had some idea of what to expect, just seeing it acted out well was more impactful,
Sure.
um, for sure.
Do
And I
you?
think,
Oh, I'm sorry.
no, I was gonna say, I think I'm maybe the time between when I read the book and when the movie came out, certainly like life is different,
Hmm.
right?
I was just
So
going to ask if it was the movie close to the book as far as keeping the same storyline or keeping the some of the plot and everything.
I think so, mostly. There are small things. So like in the book, Bridget has a brother. She has a
Oh,
twin.
okay.
She's a twin brother
Hmm.
who I'm fairly certain was named Perry, but I don't quote me on that, but I'm like 99% sure that his name was Perry because I
Hmm.
just remember being like that's like an interesting name. So I think I'm pretty sure that was it, but that's the main detail that sticks
Okay.
out to me as different, that she had a brother. And I think, because I think in the book, like they still had a relationship, as you see, like in the movie, like the dad is kind of distant.
Hmm.
But I don't know that that was the case with her brother. So I think it made it a little bit different. But
Okay.
overall, it was pretty faithful
Okay. Was
to the book.
and
Yeah.
in the book does it? Because I saw where in the movie it takes place in Bethesda. In the book, does it take place in Bethesda as well?
Yes. So I think that's because the writer Anne Brashares grew up in Chevy Chase.
Oh, okay. I did not know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I had to double check that because I was like, Bethesda is a very specific place to set a
Yeah.
book if you're not
Hmm.
from
Around that
Maryland,
area,
like from
exactly.
the DC area. So yeah, I looked it up. She grew up in Chevy Chase. So
Okay.
that
And
sort of makes sense.
for our listeners, also, that's sort of where you're around that area you're from, correct? Or
I
in,
mean, I would not say that I'm from near there, but it's in Maryland.
yeah, but okay.
I'm from closer to Baltimore.
Oh, okay.
So I think of the people that live near DC as like a totally different
Oh,
group of
okay.
people.
I
That was
gotcha.
always like living in between. I think people always had like a preference, and mine was always Baltimore. So I align myself uh northward, I
Gotcha.
guess.
Okay.
But yeah, so it's in Maryland. So like Bethesda is a familiar locale.
Right.
Uh, that I think that was probably a draw too, and maybe I think that's probably why the person who gave it to me too, because it's like local people that I can like
Mm-hmm.
relate
Or
to and see myself as. And I'm also a person who's had like the same very tight knit group of a few friends for like most of my life. Not as much as the girls in this story where their moms all met at like prenatal aerobics. We
okay.
don't go back that far. I do have one of my best friends, one of my best guy friends is our moms were best friends, so we have known
Okay.
each other since pre-birth, I guess. But my like sort of core, there's five of us. We sort of like feel this way, the way that the
Okay.
girls do. And we all known each other since elementary school, at least.
And you
Uh,
still stay in touch with them.
yes, yes.
Great. That's great.
They're still like we have a group chat together.
Nice.
We hang out. I just hung out with a bunch of them last weekend. I'm going to hang out with a bunch of them this weekend again. Certainly things look different when you're adults and like people are married and have kids and stuff, but yeah, we're still basically this. And if we could find a pair of pants that fit all of us, we would buy them and send them to each other for sure. Uh,
So after watching the movie or reading the book, did you ever go on a search for a magic pair of pants? to.
There have been times when we would all try things on and be like, "Oh my God, does it fit us all?" And like nothing ever does because
Oh,
we're different size people, and also like women's clothing is absurd. Women's clothing sizes are fake. You know, I could wear one size in one place and like walk next door, and I could wear a completely different size. So it's absurd, anyways. But we have sought it out. We've tried.
okay. Just
There
curious.
have been times when like a friend has a pair of pants and they're like, "Hey, try these on," and then we all kind of try, and it never really works. But we have tried. We have tried. If we found
Okay.
a magic pair of pants that somehow fit my one friend who's like 5 feet even, and then my other friend who's like 5'7", if there was a pair of pants who could fit like that range of people, this range
And
of sizes, then like they truly are magic, and we would definitely have to buy them and
gotcha.
share them amongst each other. But still searching, still searching.
So in the group of friends, when I was watch the movie, and I noticed also, and maybe that it speaks to the, I don't know who did the movie, to be honest with you. I don't know a lot about the producer, but they all had sort of other than their mothers knew each other, but they all had sort of different backgrounds. They had different, they were from different classes, if you want to put it that way. That and but that didn't seem to be an issue with them. It wasn't like, two were athletic, sort of, kind of. Carmen was a tennis player, and Bridget was a
Hmm.
soccer player, but the other two, one was, the loner or sort of independent, not Amber Tamblin's character,
Hmm.
and then the other young lady was, just sort of shy and reticent, but they all clicked, and it was at the same makeup of your group of friends. Do you feel that mirrored that as well?
Hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I think that we're all different into different things. We have our different kind of like strengths and personalities, and we just sort of fit together, kind of complement each other. There was a lot in their sort of group of friends that felt very relatable, like just sort of like kind of summoning each other when you know
Mm-hmm.
like one of the group needs you. Like that is something that we've done before.
Okay.
Um, I remember one time, we were a little bit older, we were in college, but one friend's boyfriend of like a couple of years broke up with her.
Mm.
And I think she told her mom, and her mom summoned us. I always
Oh.
joke that it was like an anchor man when he blows on the conch shell and says like
Uh,
news team assemble. It's like that. And we all
like,
just like we were actually at the house before like our friend got home from like
oh,
she went to his apartment and he broke up with her there, and then she had to drive home.
and
So
you
we were
all were
all
waiting.
there like waiting
Oh,
for her.
well, good for
Um
you.
Stuff like that. Or like, when things have happened with me, like, my like grandparent, well, when
Mm-hmm.
my first grandparent died, my grandmother,
Mm-hmm.
my mom like summoned everybody to come have a sleepover the
Oh,
night of the
okay.
funeral so that like my people were there. So I
That's
think
great.
it's that sort of thing, we kind of send out the bat signal and
E-
swoop
Everybody
in.
shows up.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's nice to have friends that, that you feel that, you can always call upon them no matter what. And then no matter what the circumstances or how much time has passed or anything in between, that you can reach out to them and then they're always there. That's
Yeah.
nice.
For sure. And even sometimes when you don't reach out, we will make sure we will impose ourselves.
Uh-huh. Haven't
You
called me
know,
lately. Where have you been?
Yeah, yeah. Like when I think towards the end of the movie, like Bridget is sort of in a depressed
Mm,
state,
mm-hmm.
and her letter revealed that to Lena, who was in Greece, and she calls
Mm-hmm.
Carmen and Tibby and is like, "You need to go over to Bridget's house." Bridget didn't ask for them to come, but they're
Right.
gonna show up and they're gonna
Uh,
be like, "Get up. What are you
Yeah,
doing?"
we're
Um,
here.
so yeah, I think that a lot of that felt very relatable to how I feel about like my group of friends.
Well, I can say also, in look watching the movie and seeing the characteristics of each of the four characters, knowing you for all these years, a lot of that I related to you as well. I could see where this resonated with you.
Yeah.
I see those qualities in you: smart, funny, intelligent, independent, strong. So, and
Thank you.
I can see where maybe not consciously, but you saw yourself if not one, if not all the characters. But
Yeah.
I could see your relationship to that as well.
Yeah, for sure. I was going to say, I think that there's bits of all of them that I
Hmm.
relate to. Like, I think probably, and again, we can kind of go through them one by one and talk about like their storylines, but Carmen, I think I relate to a lot. Like, she's the one that they say is sort of like the smart one. She's like the writer. Like, I also have divorced parents, like things like that.
Hmm.
Her, I related to a lot. I played soccer my whole life. So the sort of athletic part I related to Bridget about. I think that Tibby is into filmmaking and she's also a little bit of like resists conformity um
That's a good way to put it.
in a
Hmm.
sometimes like annoying way. I relate to that. And then I think Lena is like a little bit shy. And I think that that's also my personality, especially like when you first meet me. Like, I think, when I first met you, you
Hmm.
guys on the team, like, I don't say much when I first meet people. I'm trying to, take it all in. So I think that that piece of Lena I related to. But yeah, I think that's speaks to what you said about them all being kind of different. I think that there's if you're like a young girl reading this, you can see pieces of yourself in the different characters.
Okay.
So I think that that's something that makes it resonant too. And even like, I watched it for the first time when I was 15. I'm 33, almost 34 now, and I watched it again the other day, and it still does like some of the stuff that hit me when I was 15 still hits me now,
Still, well, I'm sure. If if it meant that too much to you at that age, and then I'm sure that you still feel that when you see it now. So
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. So we can talk a little bit about kind of the background stuff on the movie. So it was directed by Ken Kwapis, who has directed like a ton of stuff in terms of movies. He directed Follow That Bird, which
oh,
Sesame Street fans will know
Big
is like
Bird,
the 80s movie where Big Bird like
sure.
runs away to find his family.
Hmm.
90s children will know Dunstan Checks In. That's the movie with the chimpanzee who is helps a villain steal things and moves into a hotel. Beautician and the Beast, a
Oh,
brilliant film starring Fran Drescher and Timothy Dalton. Timothy Dalton is a dictator of an Eastern European country, and she's like pretending to be a tutor for his children, and they fall in love. Truly absurd, but so entertaining.
I agree.
More recently, he directed He's Just Not That Into You, that movie.
Oh, I did not know
Um,
that.
and looking at his Wikipedia, he's directed actually a ton of TV.
Mm.
So he did several episodes of Malcolm in the Middle, The Office, The Larry Sanders Show, ER, my favorite, The Bernie Mac Show, most recently, or more recently, Space Force. So he's prolific on TV
Evidently,
directing, yeah, and some memorable 90s and early 2000s movies. And the writers, one is Elizabeth Chandler, who doesn't have a Wikipedia page, so I don't really know anything about her. But the other was Delia Ephron, aka the sister and collaborator of Nora Ephron, who is
oh,
like,
I was just going to ask you, any
yeah,
relation? Okay.
rom-com queen. So they co-wrote a lot of things,
Oh,
right?
okay.
So You've Got Mail,
Mm.
Hanging Up, Michael, which is the movie with
John Travolta.
John Travolta is like an angel,
Hmm.
and she wrote the Bewitched movie with Nicole Kidman, I think it was,
On Will Ferrell.
and Will Ferrell.
Hmm.
Yeah. So, no slouch there, Delia
No,
Ephron.
no.
Um, so I think also that's part of the reason why it was adapted so well. And she was also she is also a novelist, so I think that probably lends itself to being able to adapt sort of a
Yeah, to
novel into a
cross that
screenplay.
that bridge or whatever you want to call
Yeah.
it from novel into a screenplay and then onto the screen.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and then the stars of the movie, as we talked about, kind of the four main characters are all people who really have enjoyed pretty successful careers, kind of around and since this movie. So, Lena, the character who goes to Greece, she's played by Alexis Bledel, who people will know from Gilmore Girls. She also had a brief stint on Mad Men, and then she married Vincent Kartheiser from Mad Men.
Oh, I didn't know
They're
that.
married in real life, yes.
Oh, okay.
Pete. Pete Campbell, the
Mm.
character. So she's married to him in real life because she had a little stint
One.
where she was someone he was having an affair with.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
They were love interest on the show.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
okay.
Like for a brief few episode
Got it.
thing. Then there is Amber Tamblyn. She plays Tibby, who's the one who stays in Maryland and works at basically Walmart. So
That was
she
such a shameless ripoff.
right, Wallman's.
Wallman's. Yeah.
She I think the big thing that like I knew her from, and I think you and I have talked about this, was being on the lead on the show Joan of Arcadia,
Hmm.
which is a great show.
It was very
Yeah.
underrated.
Yes. She's also the daughter of Russ Tamblyn, who was a famous actor. He was in like the original West Side Story movie, for example.
Seven Brides for Seven Brothers.
Yes. And then she more recently was in the show that got canceled pretty quickly, but Why the Last Man, I think was one of the last things
Oh, okay.
she has been on. And then we go to America Ferrera, who plays Carmen. Most recently, she was in Barbie and nominated for an Oscar for it. But I think she was also in Ugly Betty. She was on the show Superstore.
Superstore. I was going to say she
Um,
had two big series where she
yeah,
was the lead role, if not well, Ugly Betty. She was the
yeah,
main
the
character.
title character. So,
Exactly.
America Ferrera has also, been keeping busy. And then last but not least is Blake Lively. And she was Serena Vanderwoodson in Gossip Girl. So that was sort of her big TV thing. She's been in some movies as well. One
Hmm.
of them being Green Lantern, which was terrible.
Mm,
But
but
met Ryan Reynolds, and now they're married and have a
and
bunch of
now
kids.
she's Deadpool's wife.
Yes, which is now, I guess, sort of what she's mainly known for, being married to Ryan Reynolds and friends with Taylor Swift, I guess, are some of her main things. But she's about to be in another movie adaptation of a book. She's going to be in It Ends With Us, which is a Colleen Hoover novel. I haven't read it, but it's
Oh, okay.
popular. But yeah, I've seen pictures of her. So she's about to be back on screen. And they're making a sequel to A Simple Favor with
Oh, I have not
Anna
seen
what's her
that.
face from Pitch Perfect. Anna Kendrick
Oh, okay. I have
is her
not seen
name.
that.
I haven't seen it either, but
Mm.
people, I think it's sort of like has like a cult following, I guess, would
Oh,
be sort of
okay.
their reception. But they're making a sequel to that, so I guess she'll be in that too. But yeah, so we can, I guess, maybe sort of go through like their different storylines kind of one by one. We'll follow the pants. We'll start
Okay.
well, I guess at the beginning, sort of we're introduced to them as a group of friends. They're about to be separate for the first summer kind of in their lives. Which is a big thing. I think especially when you've like, been best friends your whole life, you're 16 and you're sort of inching toward the time where maybe you're going to be separated for a longer period of time.
Right.
But then having to spend summer apart, which is the time that you normally get like to hang out like all the time.
Yeah, I was gonna say
They,
you spend, almost every day probably with your
yeah,
close friend.
yeah. So they're going to be separated for the first time and they go shopping and they somehow stumble upon this pair of jeans that magically fits all of them. And they decide that they are going to be now the sisterhood of the traveling pants. They establish some rules and they're basically going to send them to each other throughout the summer with like letters and stuff to sort of keep in touch. Lena gets the pants first because she is going the farthest to Santorini, to Greece, because that is her name is Lena Caligaris, and she is Greek. So she's going to stay with her grandparents for the summer. This storyline, I was like, the rest of them all have some element of tragedy. And this one, I'm like, okay. Oh, your grandparents don't like your hot Greek boyfriend. Sorry, what a
Well,
terrible
that
life you have.
and you're in Santorini,
Right. You're just
where
hanging out in Santorini all summer.
right. Yeah. Tough. I thought the same thing. I thought, boy, what a horrible summer that you have to spend your time in Santorini. Maybe when you're 16, it's not such a great idea, but who wouldn't want to go to, Santorini, Greece now for 3 months, with little or no cost. You get to stay in,
Right.
yeah.
They're
So
staying for free. Your grandparents probably feed you like so much good Greek food.
exactly. Well,
Oh my
and then
goodness.
well, in her case, her hot Greek boyfriend, is also a fisherman, so I'm sure he can,
You get free
cook up a
fish.
fish. Exactly. So, uh,
Exactly what you want. But yeah, I was like,
yeah,
yeah,
I
this is
didn't,
not
not as
that
much as the other, right, the other
right.
storylines.
The other ones had some really like serious things happening, and I was like, okay, like I think this is like a common teenage thing. I think that there's, you want to date somebody that like your family doesn't like or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay, whatever. Like, and clearly this was a deeper feud, right? We're in like a
Oh,
Montague Capulet feud
right.
over fish.
Going back, what, 60 years or something.
Yeah.
So, to, back when the grandfathers, I guess, were either working together or tried to do something, or they were, and then something happened, and now they've carried this over all these
Yeah.
years.
Your grandfather sold my grandfather bad fish, and then
Yeah,
my grandfather wouldn't pay your grandfather for the bad fish, and
fish,
now
and
they hate
now,
each other forever.
right, and our families could never cross paths or talk to speak of each other. So,
Right, right. I found it a little bit silly. I mean, I like the Greek family because it is very like, I wonder where the writer like got where the Greek inspiration came from because it does seem very consistent with like, like My Big Fat Greek Wedding and
I
stuff
thought
like
the
that.
same thing.
The
Yeah.
the
So
portrayal of the Greek
the
family, like
the sort of
everybody,
stereotypical.
yes, everybody being very involved, very nosy.
Mm,
Like as soon as
mm,
she arrives on the donkey, all these people that she doesn't know are grabbing her and speaking in Greek and stuff. Um, and then, of course, she meets Kostas, her hot Greek boyfriend, because she just falls in the water somehow
right.
while she's drawing.
Somehow.
And then somehow her pants got hooked on like a piece of metal underwater. Okay. And he saves her. Great. Um, what I also thought was funny about her story was when they find out, it's like a whole thing.
Oh, you mean who the boy was, or
Yes.
about him?
When
Yes.
the family like swoops in and
Oh,
rips them apart. The grandfather is just like death stare, dead
yeah.
silent. And then they cut to her at the house, and the grandmother is waterboarding her, like drowning her,
I was gonna ask, what is going on with that? It was like she
dunking her head underwater.
trying to like drive out the evil spirits or something,
I
or
guess
what was
so.
that
I
all
don't,
about?
I again, like, neither of us are Greek, so maybe this has some
Uh,
sort
uh,
of cultural root, but I was like, she's just drowning her.
so if any
She's
of
like
you
giving
are
her a
listening,
swirly.
yeah, if anyone out there is listening and you're of Greek heritage, please let us know if this is something that we, what was going on. If you have some insight.
Yes. That I would love to know because I was watching that and I was like, oh my God,
I know.
can
I
you
thought the
do
same
that?
thing. I thought it was like, and then, because you used to hear about the old expression, wash your mouth out with soap, but that wasn't even that. It was just,
Right.
she was like pulling her up out of something where her face and her head was soaking wet. Yeah.
Yeah, that part I was like, "Oh my gosh. Can you that's
Something
what
out
my
of the
notes say."
interrogation techniques of the CIA. So,
I wrote they like drown her? LOL, what is in my notes? Cuz I
yeah,
was like, I don't remember that part, but it's like I don't know, it's not like she tossed a bucket of water at her. She fully dunked her and like
dunked her.
held her
Yeah,
under.
yeah, or splashed her or something, or whatever. So anyway,
Seriously. But yeah, she like lectures her grandparents. She's like, Papu, I know I'm speaking English, but I know you can understand me.
yeah, which,
Uh
before it was like, he didn't say a word the whole trip, and then and you don't know if he speaks or understands English or not, but I guess he
yeah.
does.
He
So
understood enough to tell her to go.
go.
He went to go get Costas before his ferry left to take him to wherever he goes to university and to say I love you, even though he was still going to go to university and she had to go back
Exactly.
to the United States. So
And he was in
unclear.
university, and she was still in high school, so he's probably what, 2 to 3, maybe even 4 years older than she is.
Yes, which will is a concern that will resurface with another one of these storylines.
Exactly. So,
But yeah, I will say he does in subsequent books. I don't remember if I think maybe in the next movie too, he does resurface and
oh,
they're
okay.
like they've been like dating but they're like not sure if it's going to work. He comes to Maryland to see her or whatever.
Oh, okay.
Or maybe because I think she goes to college at RISD. She goes to the Rhode Island School of Design because she's an artist.
Oh,
She
oh.
draws.
Mm-hmm.
As you could tell by all the shirtless pictures of Costas in her sketchbook
I
that her
know.
grandmother was like
Uh,
so disgusted by. And she's like, "Oh, we're just friends." She's like, "Oh, this is just friends."
friends. I thought she was going to set it on fire.
I thought
So
so too. I thought she was gonna like rip them all up, but
I
she
know,
didn't.
and then feed them into a stove or something.
I
So
know. And then dunk her head in some water again.
right,
But
exactly.
yeah, Lena, I was like, okay, I wasn't as compelled by like I wasn't as compelled by her thing emotionally. I was like, okay, this is great that you like found a guy. Cool.
Yeah.
Also jealous that you're in Santorini for the summer.
Right.
Yeah, Lena, I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
it's a nice
Yeah.
story. It's like it's more of a like, oh wow, I wish that I was that. I wish that I had grandparents that lived in Greece that I could go visit
Well,
for
or
a
that you're,
summer.
or that you even had the money to fly to Greece. I mean,
Yeah.
because that's just one of those things. It's like, oh, we're going to send you to Greece for the summer. It's not like
Yeah.
we're going to
Oh,
send
must
you
be
to.
nice.
I know, yeah, we're not going to send you to California, or
Right.
someplace like that. No, we're
Like
going to
my
send you.
parents would have sent me to my grandmother's house in Kentucky for the summer. Like,
Right,
woohoo.
yeah. When I was a kid, we spent summers. Yeah, we would go visit family, but it was like maybe 100 miles away. We
Yeah.
drove.
That's what
So,
like my mom and my aunt when they were kids would go spend the summers in Kentucky,
hmm.
which like no offense to
Oh, no, 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 no,
Cumberland
not
County, Kentucky, but it's not Santorini.
uh, point taken. Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah. I went to Santorini last summer and I've been to Cumberland County many times. It
Mm,
doesn't
no
really
compare.
compare.
I was going
Doesn't
to
really
say, so
compare.
no, no, not a lot of similarities there. Is that what you're trying to tell us?
Strangely enough, no.
No Costas running around in Cumberland County, Kentucky.
Definitely not. Definitely not.
Maybe you're just looking in the wrong places. You need to go to the fishing spots. Maybe
Mhm.
where they go fish. So,
Yeah, I don't know. In South Central Kentucky at the fishing spots, you're gonna find like, I don't know,
hmm,
bootleggers and
right,
guys without a lot of teeth and stuff.
teeth and
So, you're
bib
not gonna
overalls
find
without shirts.
exactly that was exactly the mental picture in my head. Overalls, maybe
Only one
only
strap
one
done.
strap buckled.
Yep, yep. So,
And
and if it's really hot in the summertime, they've cut them off at the, the
yes.
the pants off. So,
Yes.
so in
Still in
case you
boots
all don't
though.
know, Lindsay and I share regional. I grew up in West Virginia, and Lindsay has relatives in Kentucky, so we well represent Appalachia. So,
Yes.
and know the
Yes.
uniform.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But yeah, so Lena's story, I'm like, whatever.
Hmm,
They
hmm.
did good for Alexis Bledel and everybody else in this movie. They filmed that in Santorini. So
I
she got to
saw
go hang
that
out in Santorini.
because I thought at first when they talked about that, and then I was looking on the thing, I thought, well, did they actually film it in Greece? And surely enough, they did. So
Yeah.
good for her. So,
Yeah. So they filmed the Greece part in Greece and they filmed the Mexico part in Mexico.
oh, okay,
But the
all right,
rest of it they filmed in like Vancouver in Canada.
really? So
Yeah.
Vancouver stood in for Maryland.
And South
Nice.
Carolina, I guess.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Oh, okay, yeah, where he was supposed to be. He was in Charleston, right?
Yeah, but like in the suburbs, I guess.
Yeah, I guess so. So,
So, all right. So from Lena, the pants go to Tibby, which is
Tibby.
Amber Tamblyn. So she's the one who had to stay behind. She is working at, again, the Wallmans, aka Walmart.
Mm-hmm.
She's also like babysitting her little siblings. I think in the book, it's her mom and dad, and they had a sort of like midlife crisis situation and I think they actually had like two. There were
Was
twins, I
I
think.
was gonna say it looked like there were two of them
Yeah. I
that
think
I
it's supposed to
saw.
be twins.
Okay.
But I can't flu or like they're too like close in age. I don't have them anymore, so I'm not able to fact check all of my
Yeah.
thoughts about the books. But it was yeah, you see her dad more in the book, but obviously, she's not at home that much. So Tibby's main thing is she's trying to make a documentary about all the sort of losers she's encountering while she's stuck at home
Mm-hmm.
in Maryland for the summer, which is not very nice. It's a little judgmental. It's like,
But yeah, that everybody that she runs into or encounters is automatically a loser,
yeah,
or she seeks them out anyway. So
yeah. The good thing is she meets this little girl, Bailey, who points out, like, well, aren't you a loser too? Because when she first encounters this little girl, Bailey, she has passed out at the Wallmans shortly after Tibby has used the little price
the
sticker gun to put one on her head as if she is shooting herself in the head.
right.
And she, like, calls 911 to get this little girl taken to the ambulance. And the first thing this girl says to her when she opens her eyes as she's being loaded into the ambulance is, you have a price sticker on your forehead?
On your forehead.
And this story, I think, is definitely one of the more sad ones.
Oh yeah,
This is
yeah.
one of the ones that gets me emotional to this day. So it turns out that this little girl, Bailey, has leukemia, which she was not going to tell Tibby, because obviously, I think, as she says, everybody sort of like pities her and treats her
Mm-hmm.
differently, which she doesn't want. She's like 12, which is like the last thing you want is to be treated differently than anybody else. She sort of inserted herself into Tibby's life as an assistant on her documentary. And Tibby finds her really annoying, but it's just because she's actually like good at talking to people.
Mm-hmm.
Unlike Tibby, she asks them questions to get them to talk about their lives, which is what you want on a documentary. She introduces Tibby to someone who becomes a big subject of the documentary, Brian, who plays this Dragon's Lair game.
Mm-hmm.
And later in the next book, Tibby dates him.
Okay.
One of the later books, maybe the second movie also, she dates him. So, she has
Gotcha.
Bailey to thank for that too in the future. But in this movie, so she does that. And then she takes a turn for the worse, which Tibby is trying to like avoid
Yeah.
mostly. Like her mom comes to her work and is like, Bailey's not coming. She's in the hospital. I'll take you
Right.
there. And Tibby's like,
Yeah.
no, I have to work. Whereas like earlier in the summer, she would take any excuse to not have
Oh
to
yeah.
work at
To
moments.
ditch work. Exactly.
Um, and it's not until she sees this video that Bailey recorded where she's talking about
Yeah.
people and like her perspective on life and like it's really profound for someone who's 12, but I guess when you're 12 and like facing death,
Yeah.
that sort of gives you a different perspective than a regular 12-year-old.
And kudos to the actor who played Bailey,
Mm-hmm.
which I did not get her name, but I thought and I'm sure she was a lot older than that. Just happened to look 12, but
Yeah.
yeah, I thought she did a really good job of sort of portraying that kind of almost like a little sister role. The
Mm-hmm.
tagging along, wanting to be with someone and stuff, but also then you find out, like you said later on, that she has her own story in her own right, and it's not
Yeah.
just there to be her Tibby's sidekick or her apprentice or whatever. That
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think the line that got me was like, I'm trying to find my place in the world before I have to leave it.
leave it, yeah.
It's like, oh,
Because how many of us go through life without knowing what our place in the world is, and then
yeah,
to feel that you only have so much time to
right.
do it, and then at that young of an age.
Yeah.
I like the interaction when Tibby had found out about her condition, and then she went to her and said, well, come along, let's do this. And then she said, oh,
Mm-hmm.
and she said, who told you? And then she said, are you asking me because you want me to go, or are you asking me because you feel sorry for me? And I'm when Tibby said, I don't know, I like that she told the truth, that she didn't say,
Mm-hmm.
of course I'm asking you because I want you to go, not because you're sick, but she was at
Yeah.
least able to be honest about it. And then
Mm-hmm.
and you sort of maybe thought that's what Bailey wanted, at least for her to be honest about it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that's probably like one of the traits that Tibby has that the other girls value too. Cause I think in
Mm-hmm.
being kind of very bold and stuff, she is like straight up, you
Yeah,
know?
she doesn't pull any punches. She tell you exactly what she's feeling or what she's thinking.
Yeah. Cause she does that with like the girls,
Mm-hmm.
her friends. She does that with
Mm-hmm.
Carmen too.
I was going to say that comes out in another interaction with her and in
Yeah.
Carmen.
Yeah. And it's not what she wants to hear. Um,
Yeah, but
but she says
maybe
it.
it's not what it's what she needs to hear. Maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. It's certainly a different perspective, you know. But yeah, I actually made a note too that the actress who plays Bailey is so good. Like that scene you're talking about where she
Hmm.
realizes that Tibby knows that she has cancer and she's just kind of like
Oh yeah,
resigned to it. Like, oh,
right,
okay, here we go.
right. Here's another
This
one.
again.
Hmm.
But she was so it's just so sweet. And then like when they're laying like out under the stars, I think that's always the point that gets
Hmm.
me emotional at this. Like that part I remember watching and just being like, because I think that too is when she's talking about like finding her place in the world
Yeah, she
before she
did
leaves it.
mention
I think
that.
on the tape she's talking about like I don't think anybody's a loser. I think we all just have like these little things and life
Hmm.
is made up of these like little moments and we just kind of string them together and like that's life. So she's like obviously very wise for she's, you know,
Very, very profound.
yes, yes. But yeah, and then I think at the end when they sort of finally get Tibby to go to visit her in the hospital,
Hmm.
she's like sort of frantic
Yeah,
all of a sudden, right? She's like, put on the pants. Like, there's something magic about
yeah,
these pants.
right,
Like, they'll
right.
help you. Let them help you. Please let them
You're right.
help you. And that part's really sad too, because, you know, she's finally sort of like accepting this.
This is her outcome.
Yeah. Tibby is accepting it. It seems like
Yeah, right,
Bailey has
right.
accepted it long
Bailey
ago,
knows. Yeah,
right?
Bailey knows.
And she was sort of waiting for Tibby to
Hmm.
get there. And she finally does. And it's hard. And then you see, you know, they don't say, you don't hear them say it, but you know, you hear
She's gone.
there's a
Yeah.
call, the mom calls
Hmm.
for Tibby. So it's like you know
Hmm.
what's happened and that's hard. And you see and I think that obviously also plays into how Tibby reacts to Carmen, right? Cuz
Yes.
she's like, you
After
know,
that, it's
there
like,
are worse things that could be happening to you
right.
than what is happening to you even though obviously for Carmen it feels like the worst thing that could be happening to her.
Right. That and going back to the where she's in the hospital with Bailey and about doing the pants, and then Bailey tells her, but they worked their magic. They brought me to you.
Mhm. Oh my god, that
I
part.
know, I know. You know where, and then because I made a note when Bailey put the pants on when she begged to put them on,
Mhm.
and wondering, oh, are they going to fit? And I said the magic. I put the magic of the pants works differently because it didn't fit Bailey. But
Yeah.
then later on, you find out the magic of the pants did something else. It was, it brought them together.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And it's also very sweet at the time when she's still kind of avoiding
Mm-hmm.
and she's outside, like at the back of the Walmart, and the other lady that works
Oh,
there, like
with
people are talking about how nice Bailey was to them,
mm-hmm. And
you know,
how
and like,
caring she was.
yes, and like made them feel special. And she's like, you know, that made me feel so much better. Like, I'm trying all these new like combinations
Oh,
at the
yeah, and
bakery,
that
and like,
that blender thingy. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, she's like, because she took interest in the questions they had, and I also thought it was really sweet that like when she finds out she dies, she is sitting with that guy Brian, mourning with the guy Brian.
Yeah.
Um,
Outside the Quickie
yeah,
Mart or whatever it is, where
yes,
he plays
outside
the
their
the Dragon
convenience
Slayer.
store, yeah.
Yeah.
And it was nice that he had like, you know, when she finally visits Bailey, she has a little Game Boy. She's like, "Oh, Brian already visited me and he helped me to the
Yeah.
next level on Dragon's Lair." But yeah, I think that is the one of the storylines that like that really gets me.
Well, that I think of all the storylines, that's the one that I think that has probably the most profound effect on me. About
Mhm.
the other things are pieces of life and things and so on. But once you
Mhm.
lose someone, that you care for, that you're friends with, especially at a young age.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, yeah. I think that one's pretty like universally affecting,
mm-hmm,
moving, you know. Like
exactly.
I think a kid dying from cancer is just going to be
Oh,
sad to everybody. I think some of the other things are maybe if you see yourself in it, it affects you differently, but I think like eh, I don't know anyone who would not be affected by like seeing a 12-year-old
right.
dying.
Yeah, from a horrible disease that, it
Yeah.
has no discrimination or no bias. It's just, it unfortunately she got it. So
Yeah. Yeah. And
wasn't
she's like just
anything.
trying to be normal and like be
Yeah, just
annoying, which is what
mhm,
12-year-olds are supposed to be.
exactly. Yeah, and trying to make a friend or trying to,
Hang out with like a cool older girl.
yeah, do something that she enjoys, spend her, her what time she has left, doing something that she likes or that gives her
hmm
pleasure or joy. So
Yeah. And also trying to like make other people happy,
yeah,
right? Just by
exactly.
being like friendly and stuff and
Hmm.
taking interest in their lives.
Yeah. She was the one that asked the questions that opened people up that,
hmm
and you could, oh, well, for fun, what do I do for fun? Oh, this is what I do. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
And it's so funny too that Tibby's like, God, shut up. But it's
I
like
know.
she's
Yeah.
the
At the
only one who's
beginning,
getting you any material for your documentary.
yeah. Otherwise, you're just filming people looking at you, being annoyed at you. So,
Right, right.
but
You're
she's
like,
actually getting them to open up and talk about their lives.
right. Tibby's trying to film like a Richard Attenborough nature documentary. Like the way that they were when they first go to that convenience store and are filming Brian, she's like creeping up the
Oh,
aisle.
I
Like,
know. Yeah.
you can just hear in like an Australian accent, like, we're approaching Brian playing Dragon's Lair. We have to be quiet so as to not startle him. Like,
We don't want to disturb him in his natural environment. Otherwise, he might
exactly.
turn or he might flee.
Exactly. Like that's the documentary she was trying to film, which is doesn't really work with human people. So Bailey was the one who sort of got
Yeah.
her to do something
Yeah.
real that actually elicited stuff from people, but also because Bailey wasn't like looking at everybody as a loser like Tibby was.
Right. That
Tibby was,
everybody had something to offer.
yes. Yes. And I think that's what she says in her little movie that she
Hmm.
left her when she was trying on the pants. That, life is about all these moments. Yeah.
Right.
Stringing together all the little things that make up life.
That
So,
make up life.
yeah.
Yes.
But that one was very, very profound. And again, I agree with you that like the girl who I looked her up, I think she actually was like 12 at the time.
Was she really? Then
Yeah.
kudos to her.
She
So,
was like really good. Like she was emotionally affecting, which not
hmm,
all child actors can do.
yeah.
So she was really like nuanced and effective
Yo, yeah. So,
for sure. So, well,
and now the pants
and
go
now the
to,
pants go to Carmen, who's in South
mm,
Carolina for the summer with her dad.
mm-hmm.
This is the part of the movie that felt very personally applicable to my life at the time, and also in some ways since then.
Okay.
So she, her parents are divorced. My parents are divorced. And her mom is like, if you want to come back home, you can come back home.
Mm-hmm.
And she goes, and her dad is Bradley Whitford.
For those of you who don't know,
Yes.
Josh on the West Wing.
Yes.
Um,
Or he's the villain in Billy Madison.
oh, I forgot about
Uh,
that. Yeah.
I think
So,
his name is Eric in that. Uh,
boy,
that's what I think of him.
don't test me.
That's what comes to me first
Oh,
is
really?
him
See,
and Billy Madison. I've never
mine is
watched The
from,
West Wing.
oh my goodness. Okay. So,
Again, I think it was, at a time in my life that like I had no interest in watching a political drama.
oh, okay. All right.
I think it started when I was like 12 and I was like, I wanted medical dramas. That was my
Gotcha. Gotcha.
ER.
Okay.
But yeah, so Bradley Whitford plays her dad.
Mm-hmm.
And also for reference, like obviously Carmen's played by America Ferrera. Carmen is her mom is Puerto Rican in the
Mm-hmm.
story, and her dad is a white guy. Her dad is Bradley Whitford, so he's a redheaded white guy. He's a very white
Right.
guy.
Very white.
Yes.
Yes.
So, things start to take a turn kind of immediately, right? Because they're driving and she's like, wait, where are we going? Because I
Mm-hmm.
thought you live in Charleston and you hate the suburbs. And he's like, oh, what are you talking about? And she's like, I remember you said that here at this
Mm-hmm.
time, which I was like, that is so me because I will remember things like that. And he's like, oh, you remember everything. And I was like, this is why I'm Carmen. And then they pull up to this house and a woman comes out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And Carmen is like, who is this woman?
Is that your neighbor?
Yeah. Turns out, no, that's his fiance, not his girlfriend, but
Right.
his fiance. Oh, and here come, which like he doesn't even say it first. He's like, oh, I don't even remember her name. She's played by Nancy Travis,
who I like.
actress. Yes,
Yeah.
she's most recently on that show with Tim Allen, like The Last
Oh, the Last Man Standing.
Man Standing. Yeah, I was
Yeah.
gonna say The Last Stand, but I was like, that's an
Yeah.
X-Men movie. Again, I know her. She's the woman in So I Married an Ex-Murderer. She's the woman who you think is an ex-murderer.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, she comes out and he's trying to introduce her, and then her kids come out and are like, "Oh, are you telling her about the wedding?" And then Carmen's like,
Mm, yeah.
"The wedding? The wedding?" So like this started, and I was like, too close to home. Because it's like crazy.
Uh,
Imagine
mm,
you think you're just gonna go visit your dad. This like specific scenario has not happened to me, but similar.
I got you.
Um, imagine that you're just gonna go visit your dad. And then you learn that he has, in like a span of 2 minutes, you learn that he has moved. He has a new girlfriend. She has kids. Oh, by the way, they're fiancés. They're getting married this summer
This summer.
in
Yeah.
like 2 months.
While you're down there.
Yes. And nobody told you this in advance.
He hadn't even told his ex-wife, right? I mean, so it's like she didn't even know to tell Carmen, correct? And it was
Right.
like, right. So because this was a surprise to all to both of them.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And yeah, I feel like he could have told Carmen before she came down.
Or he could have told his ex-wife to tell Carmen if he was afraid to tell her.
Yeah. I mean, I think ideally he tells Carmen, but at the very least, she should have known before she got on the train to Charleston.
Right.
And
Right.
it's just he's very different with these people.
Mm-hmm.
He's saying grace at the
Oh, yeah.
meal, like, and also like this is a very sort of like blonde, white, like perfect little like country club children,
I wrote
right?
Ken and Barbie.
Yes, yes.
They look like Ken and Barbie,
They really do. They really
Yeah.
do. They look like the family from Steel Magnolias that Clarice said were made out of Swiss cheese. That's these
Yes,
people, right? It's
exactly.
very they're giving Ken and Barbie, they're giving Omega House Hitler Youth like that.
Oh, that yeah, that
Um
Stepford Wives.
yes. They're just
Uh,
like perfect little
yes,
like
yeah. Mm-hmm.
blonde like upper middle class
Mm-hmm.
people. So that these sort of revelations keep kind of coming. They talk about how they met and like how they don't answer the phone during dinner and how they have like a Latina housekeeper that they don't make an effort to speak to, which
Right, and they
obviously has to like hit home for Carmen, who is like a
Puerto
Latino
Rican.
woman, like,
Right.
and they're just like, oh, she wouldn't understand. Like, you don't want to speak Spanish. Like, I can speak Spanish to her, and she's like, I can just wash my own sheets. I'll just do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, yeah. Also, the sort of like dig about her sleeping in, I was like, same. More reasons I am Carmen.
Okay.
But yeah, no, I always get crap on my family for being the one who sleeps in the latest. But it is who I
Tough.
I am who I am.
Exactly.
This is just the way I've been sleeping my entire life, even when I was a kid. So you're welcome to my parents for not waking them up, actually.
There you go.
Most little
Yeah.
kids wake their parents up. I never did.
Exactly. Yeah.
So you're welcome to all the adults in my family for that. But yeah, and then I think one of the bigger moments, there's a few like sort of bigger moments in this narrative, but Carmen wants to go play tennis with her dad, which is clearly
Mhm.
something that they've done together before. It's a thing.
Right.
So they're going, and then, oh, there's an issue with the wedding. So can you go watch Paul's soccer game? Okay. Paul is the soon to be stepson. Okay, sure. We'll stop by for a minute. Okay, well, they stay the whole time, and then the game goes into overtime.
Overtime, which yeah.
People are asking dad, oh, like that's your son, and he's sort of claiming to be his dad while Carmen is standing there,
Mm-hmm.
not
Not
saying, not
introducing.
introducing her as his daughter, anything
I
like
wrote the
that.
same thing. Yeah, like sort of. He was like, just sort of distancing.
Mm-hmm. And then Nancy Travis shows up. Oh no, the wedding venue had a pipe burst,
Mm-hmm.
and she's all aflutter, which, like, okay, that's stressful if you're getting married and
But
you
it's
had a
not the end.
venue,
But it's not the end of the
but it's
world.
not the end of the world. And he's like, oh, well, she needs me. So I have to go
Yeah.
be with her. Carmen, go play tennis with this kid you met 3 days ago, Paul, who does not speak.
Right.
And then she nails him in the face with a tennis ball.
which was priceless, by the way.
It was very funny. And she's like, oh, because I mean, clearly she's taking out some anger
You
in this
think?
tennis match, you
Yes.
know?
Yeah.
Um,
I would not want
she's
to, I did not want to be that tennis ball.
no, no. You get the full like Venus and Serena grunts while
Mm-hmm.
she's doing it.
Oh, yeah.
Paul is running to keep up. Poor guy just did a whole soccer game, which is a lot of running, and now he has to run to play tennis, which I don't know why he agreed to this either. If I were
Who
him, I would have been
knows?
like, did you not see me just play a soccer game? That's
Yeah.
90 minutes. I'm
That
not
went
playing
into
tennis.
overtime. Yeah.
Right. I'm
Yeah.
not playing tennis. I just ran up and down a whole field. That's 100-yard long field. I'm not playing tennis.
And but
But
he
he
was like
did.
what, 16 or 15 or whatever. So yeah, unlimited energy. So
Yeah, I guess so. But yeah. And then you could see Carmen kind of goes like a little bit like scorched earth, I guess. She starts speaking Spanish in the house.
I love that.
And
Yeah.
they're like, oh, no one understands you. And she's like, Dad, you know how to speak Spanish. You and Mom used to always speak Spanish. And da, 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 da,
Right.
da.
Uh-huh.
And then I think the moment where it like really kind of reaches a crescendo is then when they go try on bridesmaids dresses.
Yeah. So you go ahead and then I'm good. I'll interject it at that point. So
Yes. So Nancy Travis and the daughter, who's like, she's probably like 12 too. She's younger.
you think,
Um,
okay.
yeah, 12,
I never,
13. She's not,
yeah,
the Paul is like same age as Carmen. The girl is like
couple
maybe
years, maybe
13. Yeah.
13. Okay.
So those three go. Again, it's like a little tiny skinny blonde white girl, the mom who is of similar stature. And then you have America Ferrera, who is like, the movie she did before this was called Real Women Have Curves.
Right.
So that tells
Yeah.
you kind of where we're at.
Yeah.
And there are these ugly pink bridesmaid dresses.
Oh, yeah.
They're like this pink, like taffeta with like tools sticking out the bottom. It was not cute. I'm like, it's 2005. What are we doing here?
I know it looked like something out of the 80s
Yeah, it was not cute. And then Carmen's does not fit at all.
at all.
It can't be zipped up. And all these people like it was like they did not expect this at all. Which presumably if you work at a bridal boutique, you have some idea of like sizes and you can tell that like, you know what? I don't think this is gonna work. But
Well, I did get the thing where they said, "Oh, well, her dad, I guess, had guessed her size to get an
yes.
idea for," and of course, was pitiful. But
Mm-hmm.
again, it speaks to the lack of communication to me. He could have called
Mm-hmm.
his ex and said, "Hey, you know what I mean?" It's like,
Yeah.
but again, it goes back to the thing. I guess he didn't want to tell anybody he was getting married again.
Yeah. He could have like made an effort to
Right.
include his daughter.
Yeah, exactly. If you're going to put her in the wedding, those things need to be figured
Right.
out. Yeah.
Right.
So anyway, so I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So
No, that I mean that and they're sort of talking about her like she's not there a little bit,
oh,
which is always annoying. And they're like, "Oh, I guess, dad didn't like consider her correct size or whatever." And she's like, "And you all didn't consider that I'm like a Puerto Rican woman with an ass." Like,
unlike you and your
unlike
daughter.
you, which like, fair, but not super nice. And then she storms out. First of all, and like the dress looked a mess. And they're looking at it like, I guess we're gonna have to start from scratch. Like, okay. You all have
Well,
like never seen someone in a dress that doesn't fit before.
I,
Like,
if anyone has never seen, and I watch Say Yes to the Dress, and I know
exactly.
all they needed was Randy in there to go again and smooth things over and just say, "Look, we're going to get this fixed. We're going to take care of this." But no, this lady
Mm-hmm.
was a jerk, at the wedding place or
Yeah.
whatever.
They
So,
were so obnoxious to her.
oh
And certainly like
gosh,
Carmen wasn't like a ray of sunshine, but like
even
I would
still though, you don't
who
go out of
would
your way to make someone
right.
feel worse over
And
that.
she's like 16, which is the time when like the world makes you feel bad about the way you look all the time, right? Like that's
Well,
just like a condition of being a teenage girl.
well, look at all the stuff going around. That's what my interjection was going to be. Look at what's going on today, and even now with the Nike's doing a thing where they're trying to help women athletes feel better about the way they look and about young girls about the way they look and performing their sports and so on. So,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and you know, but it's sad but true that you know, unfortunately, a lot of people just, you know, either make fun of them or they, you know, body shame them, you know.
Hmm.
Oh
Hmm.
no, you should be a whatever size it is. So,
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. It was just,
oh, it's
ugh.
just yeah.
And then
So,
of course the way they talked to like the other girl too. They're like, "Oh my God, you look perfect. We had to do
oh,
nothing except for a little hem. Oh my
mm-hmm,
God, what an angel." And it's just like, wow,
mm-hmm. Oh
that's the way
yeah,
you talk to her. It reminds me of this quote. So there was a season, I'm going on a tangent here. So
you're
sorry, go
fine.
with me. On a season of RuPaul's Drag Race,
Mm-hmm.
there was one, and this has become sort of an iconic quote, but one queen kept getting really, really good critiques and another one didn't.
Mm-hmm.
And in backstage, she was very upset about it. And so she just starts mocking it. She's like, "You're beautiful. You're perfect. You look like Linda Evangelista. Did you stone those tights?" And like, that's what it makes me think of. Like, that was the way they were talking to that other girl.
Agreed.
And then not America Ferrera. So the
Yeah.
other girl was, if you were a Drag Race fan, the other girl was Valentina, and America Ferrera was Aja
Oh,
in
okay.
this analogy.
Gotcha.
But
Okay.
and then I think it only gets worse, right? Because she storms
Mm.
out,
Mm-hmm.
and apparently no one goes to look for her.
And I couldn't figure out where she went. I guess she was
Right.
just out,
It
but
looked like
and
she was just walking around downtown because then a cab pulled her up
right to the
to the
house.
house where they're eating dinner peacefully as if his child isn't missing.
Well, because she says at first, or the cabbie says, "Well, there's no lights on," and she said, "Well, maybe they're out looking. They're probably out looking for him."
Yeah.
And you know, thinking that, and then she sits on the
Right.
porch, and then hears them laughing.
Eating dinner, tee hee hee, like
Yeah,
having a good chat and a chuckle, as if, again, his daughter is not missing in a city she does not live in.
and she's 16.
Right. And I'm like, you know what? Because I forgot about all that. I was like, I remember she throws a rock at the window, and I feel like it's not nice to throw a rock at the window. But you know what?
I think she was justified.
I think that it was deserved because, like,
Yeah, I agree. I think she should have gotten a bigger rock.
exactly. She should have,
Yeah,
it needed to go through the window.
through
It
the
just, it just,
window
it
and
just made cracks in it. It needed to
well,
make
or
a hole.
land on the dinner table. You know,
Exactly. Right in the middle of whatever casserole they were eating.
right?
Because, like, how are you gonna, like, it's bad enough to, like, ignore your kid, but, like,
You
just
don't
let her roam the streets.
exactly, or not even concerned about like where she
Right.
is or anything, and being a 16-year-old girl, it's like the chances are if she was in some other city in real life, she would have either
Mhm.
been snatched up or killed.
Right. And thankfully, Carmen is like resourceful and like found a cab and got herself back to that and like knew the address to get back to the
Yeah,
house.
and had money to
Um,
pay the cab.
right. So
You know,
thankfully, like maybe he just takes for granted that he has like a responsible daughter and she'll just like show up. But it's just crazy. That part was crazy to me. So look, listen, as much as,
mm-hmm.
whatever gripes or complaints I have, like no one would ever let me just roam a city by myself. No, neither of my parents, step parents, like
No,
anyone in
no,
my family would let me, especially at 16. They don't
and
want me to do that as an adult.
I was gonna say, yeah, I'm sure they worry about you now. So your
Yeah.
friends worry,
Right.
are you safe and stuff? So I
Yeah.
would worry about you.
Right.
So
Right. I mean, I would probably make sure in a situation like that, if I stormed off, which I would never do, I would just stay and stew silently. I would at least send my friends my location. They would have
right,
my location. But
yeah,
also this was 2005 pre-location sharing. So
yeah,
this was
good
the we
point.
were still we were still in flip phone days, and
Yeah,
none of them in this movie appeared to have a cell phone, which is
which
fine.
yeah, which I had noted that. I thought that was kind
Yeah.
of. I thought one of them would have one
Yeah.
maybe, but
I guess because based on when like the book came out, maybe this would have been a time that people, because I do
oh,
think that like when the movie came out, that was just when
it was
friends
coming
of mine
out.
were getting cell phones. I
Cell
got one a
phones.
little bit earlier, again, because my parents are divorced and like I would have a direct line to my dad.
Yeah.
So I got one in seventh grade, but most of my friends didn't get one till like eighth or ninth grade, which was
Oh,
when this
okay.
movie came out. So, I think depending on like and I also think probably cell phones are hard to accommodate for in like plots. They sort of do solve a lot of plot holes.
Well,
You
they
know what I
do. Like
mean?
oh, we couldn't get a hold of you. We couldn't reach you. Yeah,
At a cell
we
phone.
couldn't. we couldn't find you.
Right. Like he would have called her cell phone
Exactly. Yeah.
if she had one. So but yeah, that, and then, she goes home because she's obviously done. Her mom does a lovely "I told you so," which is
Hmm.
mm,
Mm.
the
And her
uh
mom's a familiar actor as well, and I can't think of her name, but I know she's been in other things, but
mhm.
because as soon as I saw her in the first clip, I thought, but I forgot to look to see who that was. So,
Oh,
but
here we go. Her name is Rachel Ticotin. She used to be married to David Caruso,
really,
also Peter Strauss. She has appeared in films such as Fort Apache, The Bronx, Total Recall, Falling Down, and Con Air, and she
oh,
was
that's where.
on Law and Order LA.
Oh, okay, I knew I'd seen her in something. Yeah, she was in Total Recall. I remember that. So,
And she's now married to Peter Strauss.
really, that's
Yes,
interesting. Hmm.
indeed. But yeah, so Carmen comes home. The mom hits her with an "I told you so," and she's like, "Oh, da, da." Your father, which I think this is sort of typical divorced parent vibes. And then she is upset. And this is when Tibby, like, listen, she's very like, "Kim, there's people who are dying,"
Yeah.
to Carmen, which, like, I think, is valid, but also, like, again, as a person who has felt like Carmen, if someone told me that, I'd be like, okay, great. Thanks for making me feel better.
Right. Yeah. Thanks for being there for me, buddy.
Yeah, thanks for making me feel like a jerk on top of
Yeah.
how I already feel.
Right.
Um,
For making me feel guilty as well as bad.
right, exactly. So, but Tibby does kind of prompt her to be like, all the stuff you're saying to me, you gotta say to your dad.
Hmm. Yeah, she does.
And she does. She calls him and he's like, "Oh, I'm glad you made it home."
Yeah, it's
Which I
like
was like,
and you don't need to apologize.
right.
Apologize. Yeah.
And she's like, "I wasn't calling you to apologize. You're
Yeah.
supposed to apologize to me." Like, it was like bananas. And again, like, some of this felt relatable to me.
Okay.
I've had conversations
I got
of
okay.
this ilk. And she's just like, kind of like yelling and crying about just how her dad doesn't like see her.
And I even wrote very powerful scene with her and Bradley, the phone scene.
Yeah.
I thought she was really, really good in that. I mean, she excelled in that. And I think out of the four actors, I think she has the strongest performance. And that's my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, she sort of just lets loose on him.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And
She
she's like,
unloads.
she's crying the way that I was crying watching this movie. She's like,
Oh, okay.
sobby, snotty. Like, I wasn't loud. I wasn't like crying loud. That would be embarrassing if I was at the movie. Just like wail, oh, you know what I mean? Just wailing. But she was crying hard. And I also appreciated like that stuff with her and Tibby, where Tibby sort of confronts her. She gets mad and leaves.
Mm-hmm.
She comes back. She apologizes and she's like, "I know I'm really mad at my dad.
Yeah.
Why is it easier to be mad at you?" And Tibby's like, it's easier to be mad at people like you trust and love because you know that like they're still gonna love you at the end of the day.
Exactly. But
Um,
yeah, no matter what.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And that's when Carmen calls and kind of lets loose. And it is really, I think the part of it that felt very like resonant and like moving to me is that she's like what is like lacking in me that you
Right.
that you're not like telling me stuff about your life. You're not calling me. You're not checking in on me. You don't come visit me, right? Like
Right.
her new stepbrother, Paul, goes
Good
every
point.
month to visit his dad in rehab, and you don't visit me but once a year,
Yeah.
right? So it's like, which I think is like a sentiment that again I think I have at times related to because I think it's
Okay.
hard to like make sense of these kind of things,
I'm sure.
especially when you're like that age. But um, that part I think was really, really resonant for me. And I think again, like the way that America Ferrera delivered it, I think is
Mm-hmm.
really what sold it. Because again, I've read the book, like I know what happens, but seeing someone like display that emotion and say things that like I have thought I have maybe said is like, oh, right. It's like
Mm-hmm.
it's really like it's a thing that I enjoy about movies, right? Is to see yourself like reflected.
Agreed.
Like, I think there's a James Baldwin quote, and I'm gonna like paraphrase it because I don't remember the exact words, but he's like, you think you're alone in the world, and then you read a book. And it's
And
kind of like that with movies too, right? Like you
mm-hmm,
think this like particular feeling, these questions you have are yours, and then you can see it displayed in front of you. Like I'm like, is this woman? Did Anne Brashares and Delia Ephron like plant a chip in my brain? Like, are
mm-hmm.
they listening to my
Or
conversations?
am I looking in a mirror?
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. Like, how do they know?
Mm-hmm.
How did they know?
That
Um,
that I think this, or I thought that, or I
yeah,
felt that.
yeah, exactly. And
Mm-hmm.
so we do get some resolution for Carmen too when everyone has returned home, right? Everyone's back in Maryland. Lena's the last one to get home from Greece because she got the longest vacation in Santorini. And they all
Mm.
go pick her up at the airport, and surprise, we're not going home.
Mm.
We're going on a road trip.
Road trip.
We're going on a road trip to South Carolina because you're going to your dad's wedding, which is now in his backyard. And she wears the pants because even though it's very tacky to wear jeans to a wedding, to a fancy wedding.
I thought it was very fitting. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah. Also, that would be like, it would feel like a way of being passive aggressive.
exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm wearing jeans to your wedding. You couldn't
Uh,
get me a dress that fits me. I'm here in jeans that do fit me.
yeah.
And then, but it is like a very powerful moment then when like it starts, her dad sees that she's there. They're about to start, and he's like, hold on. And he
Yep.
says, I need you.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, I'm in jeans. And he's like, I don't care. Like, I need you.
Yeah.
And she gets to go up and like be in the front with the other daughter, be part of it all.
Yeah.
That part was nice because it's obviously like what she was asking for from him, right? Just like
To to be his daughter, to be
right, just
included.
like value me, include me, like take the
Exactly.
time
Plus,
and
she was there.
stuff.
She was there first.
Right.
She was. She's. She's his.
He has one like biological daughter, right?
Exactly.
Certainly
Yeah.
these other kids are now part of the family too, but like
But yeah,
like
there's a difference. Yeah.
from jump, there's this one.
Mm-hmm.
She is
Yeah. She's his. I
única.
mean, yeah.
But yeah, so that's where I like, because again, as I said, my parents are divorced when I was in ninth grade. My mom got remarried at the beginning, and my dad was engaged to someone at the end. And like, she had three kids, and they were from like, it felt like this dynamic. I mean,
I'm
the
sure.
dynamic didn't feel that way. Like, I didn't feel as excluded by like her
Mm.
and her kids, but it
Mm.
was just like they all were from the sort of like rich like mostly white high school in our county,
Oh.
and
Oh.
I
Okay.
went to the poor, you know mostly like people of color high school in our county, so it did feel like I'm like sticking out here like a sore thumb. This is very different. And like I said, some of the other stuff was were things that I have related to.
I,
Just sort of navigating the dynamics of family, blended family, and new marriages and stuff like
mm-hmm.
that. So it that part I think was just like, especially at that moment in time when it was all sort of new, right? Like
Sure.
I
Sure.
just turned
And
15.
you were almost the same age as the character in the
Yeah.
story, and
Yeah. And
and
I'm
then
like in this point where like my dad's about to be remarried, and like my mom just got remarried and
mm,
all this stuff. And obviously like that has like complex feelings, and people who are children of divorce may relate to this, but it is like
yeah.
it is sort of like the nail in the coffin of like whatever pipe dream you had that things were going to go back to the way they were.
Right. Or that that they will never be able to go back the
Yeah.
way they were.
Right.
So
It's like,
yeah.
there was always maybe this possibility that it could happen. And now it's
Hmm.
like, no, it's
Yeah.
not going to. And that's hard to reconcile with. It's
I,
strange to reconcile with.
I'm sure.
And so like seeing someone who again, I think in personality I related to a lot in terms of like
Hmm.
she's sort of, and again in the books it gets, she's sort of like the overachiever kind of valedictorian at school. I was salutatorian, but like close enough. But like we had a similar personality in a lot of ways, and
I
like
can see
just
that.
the
Yeah.
situation was so felt so relatable to me that it was like I think that's why like I cried so much. Like obviously again, like the Bailey stuff was very sad, but this
Hmm.
part was just like,
Oh, I'm
oh my God.
so just when you thought the waterworks were over,
Yeah,
they get turned back on.
exactly.
Were you dehydrated at the end of the movie?
Probably. I didn't drink a lot of water when I was
I,
in
s-
high school.
I was going to say, did you have to go? You didn't have to go get an IV started or anything.
No,
So
I probably should have. Oh my God. I can only imagine like what I don't remember who picked us up, but I can only imagine what they thought because we were probably just like red and like swollen and just like oh, maybe I really liked it. Like
yeah, how
it
was the
was
movie? Oh my God, was it that bad?
it was so good. It was so good I can never watch it again.
Right. Yeah.
I'm so glad the boys didn't come with us. Yeah, so Carmen's story, as I said, was like very looking in a mirror, as you said. It was a lot. But again, I think it validating too
Yeah. Yeah.
to
So
see. And I wonder how it does make me wonder too, like as I watch this, like where did Anne Brashares like get all of this from? Like I
who
wonder
know?
like what of this was like her experience? What of this like did she have friends that went through these things? Like where did this come? Because it feels so like true.
Well, it is
Feels authentic.
real life. Yeah. So,
Yeah. Yeah, it's like she captured
not
it because like
contrived or
right, right.
it's
Because yeah, I mean, I don't know if she went through that, right? But it just like again, like the way that they addressed it, the way that like Delia Ephron wrote it, the way that America Ferrera performed it, just felt like so spot on to like what that experience
what
is.
I wonder because now I know America was. I think she was 20 when she did this movie. I think because I think she's 40 now. I was looking or
Mhm.
whatever, but she was young. But I wondered about, like I said, I think her performance was the best of the four. But I wondered where she got the the motivation to to let loose like that.
Mhm.
Because and to really bring that out. That because you did feel that I think when she was
Mhm.
talking to him on the phone. I think if he'd have been there, she'd have beaten him up.
Mhm. Mhm.
And rightfully so. But that her you could it was raw, it was just you felt just so bad for her
Mhm.
and hated him
Yeah.
for not being the adult,
Yeah.
not doing the
Mhm.
right thing. So but
Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah. But no, that scene was really great because I think at that point, especially like I have in my life had a phone call like that, but at the time I had not. And so it did feel like seeing
Mm,
things that I
mhm.
maybe didn't feel like I could express
At that
um,
time.
at that time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I think especially, like parents, at least maybe my parents, maybe other people's parents aren't like this. My parents are always like, tell us how you feel. Tell us how you feel. But like at that time, I was like, well, like you guys are like the subject of all my feelings. So it's
Yeah.
like, I don't want to tell you.
You know, um,
Because it's, you know what I mean? Like
y-
you're
y-
at the center of
yeah,
everything
right.
that's
Yeah.
making me
Yeah.
have these
So,
feelings. So it's like I should uh, I'm gonna maybe tell somebody else, um, or like write it down, or something, or just hold it all in until I make myself sick. Uh,
what was I know parenting styles have changed because I can remember telling my dad one time that I was upset about something. He said, "I don't care if you're up." It was like something he told me I couldn't go somewhere or do something, and I said, "I'm upset," and I started to go. He says, "I don't care if you're upset or not." He goes, "That's the word. The word is you're not going. So whatever you deal with that." So
yeah, yeah,
there was none of this like let's talk this out. It was like,
yeah.
hey,
Well, that's a different scenario too. Like if
yeah, it
my
could
parents
be.
told me I could just like not do something, and I was like, well, why? I'm upset about that. They might say the same thing,
Oh,
but
maybe I guess
in this
yes.
sort of like the
Yeah.
divorce remarriage context, they wanted to know because again, I like I said, I do I am the Lena in a little bit in some ways. So I play things close to the vest
All right.
sometimes.
Okay. I
So
can see that.
I have been told, for example, I am hard to read. So they uh they wanted me to be more expressive about things. So
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
but at that time I was not. So
Well, do you tell them, maybe your goal in life is to be the world's greatest poker player and you don't want everybody to, you don't have a tail. So
exactly.
am I holding five aces or am I holding nothing? So
Yes. I was an actor at the time. That was my years in drama club, so I could
exactly.
acting,
It's
you know. But okay, so moving on, following the pants.
Pants. Now we get to.
The final stop, we're going to Baja California, where Bridget went to soccer camp. Where once again, when I was in high school, I went to soccer camp at like the local park
Mm-hmm.
and the Naval Academy. I wasn't flying across country to another country to go to
Right.
soccer camp.
Down to Tijuana or
Right.
wherever it was.
They were in Baja California, which I
Okay,
guess
sorry,
is
sorry. Yeah,
not that
just
far though,
I was gonna say I think you
just
because
south
the
of Tijuana.
in the place where they went to the bar wasn't that in Mexico?
Yeah, they were
Yeah,
no, like that peninsula is called it's Mexico, but
it's
the
Mexico.
peninsula is called
Okay,
Baja
so
California.
because one of the things I wrote down is what nobody asked Blake Lively for her ID when she went into the bar.
Her storyline, there again, there is some tragedy in it, but it's mostly mess. I find this to be mostly mess.
Oh,
Mess.
oh, oh, yeah. It's like,
So, for background, if you haven't seen it, Blake Lively in the movie, it's just her and her dad. Again, in the book, she had a brother, but in the movie, it's her and her dad. Her mother had killed herself
mm,
some years prior, which you see kind of at the sort of
at the
beginning
very opening,
montage.
right? Exactly.
And you get some foreshadowing onto how Bridget handles emotions and problems because at the end of the funeral, she takes off her shoes and says, I'm going to run home and just takes off running in her
And
stocking feet.
right,
Just
beats
bolt.
feet. Yep,
Mhm.
yep.
So there's some a clue as to how she handles difficult emotions. That's one way. Keeping them to yourself like me is one way. Running away is another.
Well,
And that's the method she chose. So she's at soccer camp. Bridget is like in the books, in the movies, like she is the athletic one,
mhm.
sort of like outgoing, popular, kind of whatever.
Also tall. How tall is
Yes,
Blake Lively? She's
she's
like,
pretty
I
tall.
was gonna say
Yeah.
because she even like against the other
Hmm.
actors, she's like, yeah, she's almost like a head taller than the
Yeah.
other.
She's got to be in like the 5'11" neighborhood.
I was, yeah, I didn't
Okay,
look it up, but
she's
I
she's
just,
5'10". That makes sense.
yeah, there you go. So,
So yeah, she goes to soccer camp and immediately sets eyes on a
mm,
Hawkeye coach
mm-hmm,
who, so she's 17 at the time, which she announces to him specifically.
right.
He goes to Columbia. So he is somewhere in the neighborhood of a couple, 2 to 4 years older than her, as we discussed with Costas and Lena.
Mm,
He is a few years older than her. I will say it was not as bad as I remember because in my mind I was like, she is a child and you are an adult. But like, okay, like 17 and 19 is not like that bad, but still he
no,
is
no,
he is still an adult and he's in a position of authority. Because the other girls, when they first get there, are like, oh, it's against the rules to hook up with coaches. And I was like, why is that a rule? Is this happening? What kind of
right,
camp is this?
right. And I was gonna say, if that's a problem, then why are they having men coaches then? I mean, if that's an issue,
Right. Don't have like hot coaches. It's gross. But yeah, I was like, why is this? Why is
mm,
this a
mm-hmm,
discussion?
and
You know,
right,
people make rules of things that have happened. The rule only rules exist when it's like a thing has
right.
happened. You know what I mean? When
Yeah,
you like,
is this an
especially when you
issue?
go to places and there's like a very specific, like,
Yeah,
it's like, don't put like shoes in the toilet. And it's like,
yeah,
but who put shoes in the toilet to
yeah.
make you
Somebody had to have done that at some point where it became an
to,
issue.
to make you make that sign?
So Bridget then gets the pants.
Yes. Well, she's like, first of all,
Well, I'm sorry,
she's
but
flirting
yes,
with this man
right. Oh,
hard
oh, oh.
in a way that I'm like, girl, you are thirsty.
Well, and you were talking about we're looking at this. I I think that he showed a lot of self restraint and a lot of maturity because he kept resisting.
Yes, yes.
I
And
mean,
she was
come
like
on.
dumping water. Like she every time
Oh,
she walked
oh,
by him, she
oh,
would like it was a
oh, yeah.
L'Oreal commercial. She's
Mm,
flipping her
mm,
hair. She's
ex-
dumping water on herself. She's wearing skimpy outfits. And I'm like, I'm sorry. I played soccer my whole life. I went to soccer camps.
uh-huh.
That's not how you dress to play soccer.
Okay, I was going to
She was
ask
not dressed for soccer.
that's what I was going to ask you, and then because it didn't look
She
like
was
she
dressed
was.
to show off the bod.
I
She was
got it.
not dressed like you don't wear spaghetti straps
Well, yeah, I was one.
And
Well,
like, no, she's not wearing a sports bra. Are you
she
kidding?
wasn't
You're
even wearing
running.
like the right foot gear, right?
Right. And she's wearing like the tiniest shorts. Like, no, I'm sorry. That's not what
Yeah,
we wear. That's
that's
not
what
what we
I
wear to
thought.
play soccer. She also like, no offense to Blake Lively. She's very like tall and beautiful. She does not look athletic at all. When they were running, I was like,
Mm,
girl, what are these T-Rex arms? You never learn how
yeah,
to pump your arms when you
yeah.
run?
I got you.
She runs
So
crazy. I was like, as a person watching this, like from an athletic perspective, it's not giving athlete. It's not giving athlete. It's giving model. It's giving
yeah,
model pretending to be an athlete, which like, okay, that's what you're doing.
right.
But yeah, no, she was like, I've walked through the desert for 10 days level of thirsty. Like
Mm-hmm.
it was
Mm-hmm.
like, girl,
Mm-hmm.
chill out.
Right. But
Chill
would not let
out.
it go.
She would not. Um, and you do get some like it also, and I hate like this term, but it does give a little bit of daddy issues because she's like
Oh,
striving
sure.
so hard for male attention, and then she gets a typed letter from her dad that is truly two sentences.
Two sentences and then dad, not
Yeah,
even, like, yeah.
right. It's just like, I hope you were having a good time. I will see you when you get home. Like
Dad.
typed, not
Yeah.
handwritten,
Right, right.
typed.
I think
He
he
signed the word
signed
dad.
dad. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
but
So,
that's it. And like even when it was time for her to leave before, like
oh, he was like, well, you better go. Your bus
just
is,
like pat
yeah.
pat. Yeah, like oh my God.
I
She's
think I
about to fly
read,
across the country.
I think I read too, that's her real dad
Oh, really?
that played her
Oh,
dad in the movie.
he is like she has like an acting
I think
family. I
it's,
think he was an actor too.
yeah, I think that's her real dad. I read
That's
that.
interesting. Did you
Yeah,
know her sister? Have you ever seen the movie from 1989 called Teen Witch?
maybe.
I feel like there's not a good reason for you to, but maybe other people of my generation have seen Teen Witch. The girl, the titular Teen Witch is
Hmm.
Robin Lively, Blake Lively's older sister.
I have seen that. I know what you're talking
Yes.
about. I didn't.
Top
Okay.
that.
Okay.
That's a movie. I think I have
Ooh.
it on my list. We're gonna have to visit that because that movie is
Uh-oh.
like wild
Oh,
also.
okay. All
Top
righty.
that. It has a little lady from Poltergeist in it.
Oh, the little short like come to the
Yeah.
light, come to the light.
Yes.
So okay, I'll
I had
come.
never seen Poltergeist until I was an adult. So like my whole life people were talking about this woman and I was like, you mean the lady from Teen Witch?
Mm-mm. Yeah, so now she was in
I
Poltergeist,
have
of
to have a
course.
different reference than everyone for everybody, apparently.
No,
Bradley
it's fine.
Whitford,
It's
Nancy
fine.
Travis, and the lady from Teen Witch.
Well,
But yeah, so once Bridget gets the pants, she's like, it's time.
yeah, it's on.
Mission engaged. So they sneak out to like a cantina in this a little Mexican town where Tijuana, wherever they are,
Mm-hmm.
and just like fully pursues this man.
Right.
And then they go to the beach and then they have sex. And then she feels very bad.
What and in all fairness now, it was she who instigated it.
She did. And I think, like I said,
So it's
in my
it's
memory, in like I'm like the age gap was like very big in my mind, but like in real life, I was like, okay, it's not that bad. Obviously, this is still like inappropriate because you're like in a
oh
position of
sure.
authority, but
Yeah.
like he wasn't at least directly her coach,
No, but even still,
but like it's still not good, but it was not like as bad as, like I remembered it in my mind.
no,
But it
no,
was still just like, girl, like what are you doing?
well, I mean, yes, in all honesty, he should have said no, no, no. He kept saying no, no, no
Hmm.
all along, but and then he did, give in or whatever it may be.
Hmm.
But like I said, I thought, up until that point, he showed a lot of restraint, a lot of maturity, a lot of, he said, no, this is wrong. We shouldn't be doing this, and so on and so forth. But and then it still wasn't right that he did it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
and
But
I'm fine.
I think like you said, she was like she was going very hard. And I don't think she should have done that either. Because then
No,
she like felt bad about it. And listen, this is not to say like I was worried. I remember that she felt bad about it. And I was like, is this going to be in like a like slut shamey way? But it wasn't. It was very much like she thought she was going to like get something out of this emotionally that she didn't.
that she didn't. Yeah.
Right?
So yeah.
She's a runner away from sad feelings and she's like
Hmm.
this will be a thing that makes me happy and it didn't.
Boy,
A
ain't
lot of
that the
things
truth.
she feels like it's going to make her happy and it didn't. The other thing too about her was that like she was in her quest to show off for this man. She was such a ball hawk. I would hate to have been on her team.
I
She would
know
not,
she.
her coach would be like, pass the ball, pass the ball, pass
Yeah,
the ball.
you're
And
sweet.
she would
It.
never, she's like, you do not go past the half line. The sweeper
Yeah,
is the farthest back person. You do not. And then she would still do it. Not pass the ball to anybody.
Yeah,
They did have
yeah,
great celebrations though. Great goal celebrations.
they did. I like that. Where she like did the model thing, and they were all
Yes, the
like
model
taking
and they were all
pictures and stuff.
paparazzi.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
loved that. Loved it. So
Or when
and
they'd
that
be
or
like,
they
"We are
bowed.
not worthy.
Were
We are not worthy."
so they
Yes.
they
Yeah,
all
they were good. But yeah, she was I was like, "Girl, that would be so annoying." If I was on
yeah,
her team, I'd be like, "If you don't pass me the ball,
right, yeah. You're
I
not the
it's
only superstar here, kid.
right." So presumably you have to be of a certain level to get to this soccer game.
Ex-
Except for the girl at the beginning who was like, "I'm only here because my mom made me. I hate this." And then they call her name and she's like, "What? What?"
I know it's like
But yeah, Bridget then goes home and she's just in a depression.
right, a blue funk as I would.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, she is in a dip of the mood for sure. And
Mm-hmm.
that's when, when the pants kind of make their second rotation, she sends them back to Lena with her letter about like what happened. This is when Lena gets the letter. She calls up Carmen, who goes to get Tibby, who is like Tibby is like in mourning. And Carmen's like, come on,
Yep.
Bridget needs us. And then she's like, oh, okay. And then they go, because that's just what you do. And they go, Bridget's like asleep. That part was funny too, that they were like, they open, I
I
don't know
know
if they had
there
like chips or whatever. They're like, I knew the
right.
smell of junk food would wake her up.
Would wake her up. She wakes up and they're just sitting there on her bed. So
Yeah.
yeah, which
That
was
is very like a friend. I have woken
oh
up to
sure.
friends staring at me before.
Oh okay. I've
Especially
woken
as
up to the
the
cat staring at me, but
perpetually the last person to wake up. Actually, at some point they would like just leave the room and I
oh
would just smell
okay.
breakfast and everyone's eating breakfast without me. But yeah, that part. And then the worst trained dog in the world that she has
Oh
steals
yeah.
their pants and goes running down the street.
Mm-hmm.
No home training on this dog.
No,
Does not
no,
respond to commands.
no.
And
Stop.
who does he run into but
Now this
Eric?
one felt contrived.
It certainly did. I was thinking about this before this. Like, so Eric, the soccer coach, goes to Colombia, and you're telling me there were no direct flights to New York City
From
from Mexico or Southern California, wherever they flew from?
Guadalajara or wherever it was
He
he
had to
was at.
fly. I mean, they probably flew to like San Diego. You can't fly from San Diego to New York.
New
There
well,
are
he said
three.
he said he was there to see her now. So
Yeah, I
I
guess
know, I know.
he willingly flew into Dulles or
Mm-hmm.
something. Dulles is
Mm-hmm.
the worst. I hate going to Dulles.
I agreed.
So this man willingly flew into Dulles and is just strolling down her street to come visit her to apologize for how things went down,
Mm-hmm.
which, was nice.
Yeah.
Um,
And I like
but
how he said, well, what happened was his fault. And then she said fault. And then he said, okay, responsibility.
mm-hmm.
And he said, no, nobody was at fault. It wasn't, but he
Yeah.
was, and came to
Mm-hmm.
terms with, how he should have handled
Yeah.
it.
And she's like, yeah, I think I played a pretty big role in this too. Um,
Yeah. So
as
she owned up to
she
her
owned
part
it,
in it.
yeah.
Yeah. So,
And then he's like, maybe when you're older, we'll talk.
right. And
I
then
can't remember if he turns back up in the
if they
books.
reconnect,
I feel like he might, but
okay.
I'm not 100%, but like it feels familiar. I don't know.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
anyways, Bridget also, I think more importantly than the guy, she kind of so obviously as we mentioned, her mom
Mm-hmm.
died by suicide. And she seems to have this feeling that like if she feels sad, she's gonna kind of
She's going to do the same thing. Yeah.
end up there too. So she like if she has like a hint of sadness, she has to like bolt in the other direction as she physically literally did at the funeral. So, everybody gets a little bit of insight into themselves at the
Mm-hmm.
end of this. And then they all come together to support, they all have their moments, right? Like Tibby is supporting Carmen and Carmen is supporting Tibby, and then they're all supporting Bridget, even like Lena from afar. And
Right.
then when she comes home, they're all supporting Carmen, um, sort of in her moment of need. Because
Mm,
obviously everybody else has some level of like resolution with their
yeah.
thing,
At that
except for
point,
her.
except for
Yeah. And
Carmen.
for Tibby, the resolution wasn't like good, right? It came to an end, but
Well, it did, and I was going to say, but at the end of it though, where she was going to make a movie about Bailey.
Yeah. Yeah. So she definitely
So
came to like, you
yeah,
know,
you're right. It wasn't a good ending, but her focus changed from what she was
yeah.
going to do about
She
losers and
got
stuff.
she got something
Yeah,
out of it, even
positive
if it
out of it.
wasn't like obviously like the happy ending, right? Like Lena like has her hot Greek boyfriend and her grandparents are okay with it.
Right.
Woohoo,
And
good for you.
Bridget got to
Um,
sleep with the hot soccer coach, and he'll look her up, and or she'll look him up in a couple of years.
yeah,
And
she'll look him up when she goes to college, I guess.
right, yeah,
If she goes
uh,
to Columbia or
whatever. So
but yeah, so it's, it comes to an end and I think that, they say in this sort of narration at the end, like it's not that the pants are magic, but it's just like it showed us that we're kind of always here for each other, even when
hmm
we're physically apart. And like we know that that's going to be the case.
yeah,
And that's another part I love. Like I said, I have had the same best friends for most of my life, and I feel that way
that's
about
great. I
them.
mean,
So,
and like I said, I had not seen the movie, but I did enjoy the movie, and I liked the message the movie gave out. That, like you said, it was like that. If your friendship or your bonds are that strong, and so on, that that'll be you will be together, or you will be able to help and support each other throughout
mhm.
all those tough times. So especially during those tough times, it's
Yeah.
always easy to celebrate someone's success, but it's tougher to be there when they're down, or when they need you, and maybe
Mhm.
even sometimes when they don't know that they need you.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah. And I think too, the movie, I will also say, just for people who haven't seen it, like it has its drama, but it's also like it has its comedy too. Like
oh yeah, uh,
when when Lena is like obviously like besotted with Costas and her all the family is looking at her like, what's going on? And
oh.
her grandmother's like, she's getting too much sun.
One every time, like you said, that like something would come up, it'd be like what, three or four of her cousins or whatever would, like, just stop whatever they were doing, and like, turn
Mhm.
and look at her, and like,
Just poking their heads in through the
yeah, just
windows
it,
and stuff.
yeah. Oh, those are your cousins. How many cousins do I have? Many cousins. So,
Yeah. And then, we talked about Carmen hitting the guy Paul in the face with the tennis ball, which was a highlight for me, cracked me up.
oh yeah, yeah,
I think that like the banter between Tibby and Bailey, I think made me laugh a lot
yeah. It
because
was
they
very,
they were just like quick and back and forth. Like, you're the one with the price sticker on your forehead. Like, shut up.
yeah,
No, you shut
exactly.
up. Like, it's kind of like,
Well, and then Bailey sort of accused. She says, "I think I had more money in my wallet." It was like
yes.
she'd found her wallet, and she said, "Are you accusing me of stealing money from you?" Like, and it was like the little banter, about like, well, what are you? You work at Walmart or Walmans or
Yeah.
whatever. It's like, what kind of loser am I if you got to work at Walmans? So,
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, Bridget, she wasn't as funny. Some of the other girls were funny, but she she was not, but I was just like, girl, you are so desperate. What are you doing?
oh,
I laughed in like discomfort at her being so like obvious.
well, that was it. It was just like, yeah, she was just, so overtly that way. And
Yeah.
I just, I guess you maybe looking at it, she thought, oh, well, I'm, what, a half a country, I'm a whole country away. So
Yeah.
nobody will ever know, it's not like
Hmm.
somebody, or I'll never see him again. Maybe
Yeah.
that was part of it too. I don't know, that
Yeah. For
it was
sure.
just going to be a summer fling thing. So,
Yeah. Yeah, but well, that's kind of all I have to say about it. Do you have anything, any takeaways, any last thoughts?
not other than what I said. Like I said, I thought it was a really good movie about friendships and relationships, and about how people, support each other and things. And like you said, going back, I didn't realize the movie was that old, to be honest with you.
Hmm.
It was, it's almost 20 years old, 19 years
Yeah,
old.
that makes me feel
And
old.
how, oh please, but how they, how these actors started out, and
Hmm.
like I said, I didn't know, like, when I remember when Ugly Betty started on TV, and I remember when Superstore started on TV, and
Hmm.
Blake Lively being married to, I did see Green Lantern because I like superhero movies, and God, that was terrible, but I remember her being in that, and that's where
Yes.
they met. But my point of reference, like you, for those actors are from those moments, not from this movie where they started.
Mhm.
Although Amber Tamblyn, I knew from Joan of Arcadia,
Yeah.
which I think was before this movie.
Yeah, I think so.
So I did read out of the actors that there were other people considered for those roles, except for America Ferrera.
Well,
That she was the first one cast, and then there was no discussion about anybody else to play her part, I think. But they looked at some other, like I think they said Olivia Wilde was
that's interesting. I could see her being like,
one of the other characters, and then I
she'd
forget
probably be like
somebody.
Tibby.
Yeah, but anyway, so just but no, other than that, like I said, I enjoyed the movie. The
Mhm.
movies that you have picked that I have not seen, I have enjoyed watching. So I will say that. So for anybody out there that says, "Oh, that's a a girl movie or a rom com or whatever," give it a chance.
Yeah. I have picked a lot of girl movies. Maybe I gotta like switch it up.
That's it. No, it's
We
okay.
gotta get into some like
You're. It's okay. It's
my like murder phase, We
ooh
gotta
ooh ooh. Okay.
I've been thinking about this, but we'll see. Well, I do think that's interesting to know about the cast. And it's interesting too because this cast, like, they're still friends. They'll occasionally post pictures of the four of them together. Like when America Ferrera was nominated for an Oscar
Oh, for
this
Barbie,
year, she like
really?
FaceTime. There's a picture of like,
Oh, that's
they're all
great.
FaceTiming each other and like them all together. There was like a Barbie like screening or something in New
Mhm.
York, I think around award season, and they all went to that
I
together.
did
So
read on Wikipedia there, and maybe it's been scrapped, but they're talking about developing a musical on the movie, The Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants.
that's interesting. That's
I
interesting.
think it's in the Wikipedia page about this that it's being talked about, or it's in
They've done it with a lot of like, they did it with Mean Girls and Legally Blonde. I don't know if
Waitress.
Waitress. Waitress, I think that really it really works. I really want to see that. Um, but have you ever seen the movie Waitress? I think
I
we talked
have
about this.
not.
You should. Well, we'll do it for this at some point because it's a really
Okay,
good movie.
so
Um,
I've
but yeah,
is Steve Martin in it?
no.
No. Okay.
Nathan Fillion is in it. Carrie
Okay.
Russell, Nathan Fillion.
And Nathan Fillion. Okay. All right.
Mhm.
So okay. I don't know why I thought Steve Martin for some reason.
I think
Anyway,
is he in like Shop Girl? He's in a movie called
Shop
Shop
Girl.
Girl.
That's
So
what
maybe
it is.
that's
Yeah, that's what. Yeah,
other
yep. So
service industry.
my bad. So yeah.
Yeah.
So sorry. So
But yeah, so anyways, I will say that my takeaways from Sister of the Traveling Pants are best friends forever. Women's sizing is nonsense, and obviously Anne Brashares was spying on an adolescent me from
oh.
Chevy Chase. So that's all for us. Please subscribe to the podcast on whatever platform you listen to. I think you can also leave reviews, so leave a good one. If you have anything not nice to say, write it in your diary or tell it to someone else. You can follow us on Instagram at Some of Our Parts Pod. And until next time, bye bye.
Take care.